Let's explore how a refined data platform can enable safe, privacy-respectful, and sustainable solutions for mobility. On this episode of All Things Automotive, we're going under the hood with Otonomo to look at how managed data can integrate the human element into services. And then we'll look around the corner with AWS's GM of IoT Automotive to discuss purpose-driven approaches to data collection. Let's start the show. Go on a cloud innovation journey with me, Stefano Marzani, as I'm joined by guest experts and mobility leaders to look at the drivers of transformation on all things automotive. Fred, Mike, welcome to All Things Automotive. It's such a pleasure having you here. And Fred, Otonomo is a great partner for AWS. You've been one of the first to adopt connected mobility services. We did many things together. Can you tell us a little bit who Otonomo is, what you're doing?
Sure. Thank you, Stefano. It's great to be here on All Things Automotive. Otonomo is really one of the leaders in the connected vehicle and mobility services space. And we're out to build a platform to power the mobility economy and ignite this whole new generation of services and experiences.
So what's the vision of the platform?
Well, at Otonomo, we wake up every day and we think about how can mobility be more equitable, more sustainable, more safe. We think about if you can harness mobility data, you're going to change forever how people move. We've got to redesign how we design, engage, and consume mobility services, how we think about our cities and redesigning them, and even the business models that have underpinned the transportation sector. And all of that requires a platform that can take all that raw mobility data and translate it into a rich new set of experiences and services.
That's really great because I think it's very in line with what's emerging by this second season of All Things Automotive, where all the systems get connected because it's not just cars, it's mobility, right, as a whole that you are describing. With think about the EV revolution. So we need to understand the charging status of the batteries, maybe use them to store, distribute energy, so all the systems become interconnected. And what are you doing to accelerate this revolution?
So when Otonomo started, it was connected vehicles and data. Fast forward to today, and it's really connected cars and mobility resources, right? It could be, and I know you're keen on this, it could be public transportation, it could be scooters, bikes, it can even be transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, maybe a smartphone of somebody.
Indeed,
going around.
Even smartphones. So we understand that that's changed, and it's not just data, it's data and insights. So we see the market maturing now and looking for value creation above the plumbing. And so that's why we've introduced 3 new solutions to accelerate that market adoption. One was around mobility as a service. So how do those providers think about where to place assets to shape demand? EV planning, where to put charging stations, and then also urban planning, how we rethink traffic flows within cities. And then on the fleet side, we've even got some management dashboards to help fleet operators transition to a software-defined fleet management solution.
Interesting. And of course, in all of this, there are some delicate things that all the customers are asking about, right, Mike? For example, privacy, consent, right? So what's your point of view on that?
Yeah. So there is a lot to be said around respecting the ownership of the data and the sharing of the data when and if that happens. And there are a number of different approaches that we can do there. And some of the things that we have done on AWS over time have a lot to do with working backwards from the customer and making sure that this becomes a frictionless kind of solution.
Interesting. And I'm pretty sure that's embedded in your platform, in Otonomo. What are the main tenets of the platform itself, Fred?
Well, when we architect the platform, we think about first scale. So you've got to be able to ingest from tens or hundreds of millions of mobility resources and assets. That's number one. And second then is how we create value around that data. So we can consider maybe 2 different types of data streams in the platform and the architecture. One is what we call aggregated. Now, this is where we're taking data from a bunch of mobility resources. We bring it in, we standardize it, unify it, create that data dictionary, then we blur it, and then we begin to enrich it with things like geographic data and vehicle status and then we stream that out to our partner community. The other data stream can be around consent that Mike was alluding to. And this is where the vehicle is going to have an identifier, a unique identifier. We're within compliance and all regulations, but we put it through a consent module to verify that. And then typically that data is used more as a batch report, historical report, like for fleet operators where they want to know where their vehicle is, what the status is. So that's how we think about the platform, and it's all underpinned by AWS infrastructure.
Sounds like well architected, as you said, and some of the things that we can see in that kind of scale and some of the patterns that you have used include serverless, a lot of compute basically that is on demand at the end of the day. Also, container-based compute, and maybe the consent engine.
A lot of big data compute in there, right? And streaming services, streaming data in, streaming data out, Kinesis and other technologies that surely are very appropriate for this use case. And Fred, it seems like to me that, we frequently say that AWS manage infrastructure, right? It's like you are managing data, right?
Right.
So that's pretty interesting. Am I right on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really want our partners to focus on their business, not focus on how or what they're going to do with the data. So we're very keen on our value proposition around reducing complexity, cost, and burden. City planners can be city planners, not big data managers. Mobility as a service providers don't have to have legions of data scientists on board. So we take all of that complexity out by arranging all those contracts with mobility providers and putting it into the platform, and then you can access it with one API and one contract. On the consumer side, also very interesting, I get asked this question a lot. I don't know about you, Mike, but it's like, why should someone consent to give up their vehicle data? What's the benefit of it for them? And, I think about these very simple but important use cases. Number one, we can have shorter commute times based on that. We can have safer commute times. We can even get it to be more equitable because we have the technology today to help us understand and create insurance policies around how you drive, not who you are based on your credit score. So it becomes a more equitable mobility experience.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. And it seems to me like you are giving a new meaning of the expression that we frequently use in the sector, that data is the new oil, right? It's another wave to see the sector evolving and maturing, right? Becoming very sophisticated and, generating this data, but in a respectful and purpose-driven way. So it's fantastic. Thank you so much for providing this point of view. It's been really interesting and really useful, I think, for our viewers. So thank you both for being with us today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mike, I really enjoyed the conversation with Otonomo. And I'm happy now you have time to stay with us and provide your expert point of view on modern data management in the automotive sector. Because I definitely see a shift, right? From collect everything to a sophisticated and conscious and purpose-driven way to collect and use data in the sector. Is that right?
Yeah, indeed. I think, Stefano, that the automotive industry has been on a binge to collect as much data as possible from
brute force
every sensor.
Everything. Yeah,
exactly. So they are looking right now at a non-sustainable path as to what's coming up next. And those are some of the challenges that we're going to be seeing more and more as more electric vehicles and new architectures around them, autonomous vehicles, and new and powerful and data-hungry sensors are coming, the cameras and LiDARs behind them.
10 terabytes a day per vehicle.
10 terabytes per day, exactly. So those are all going to be parts of what is up ahead. And those are going to be challenging to keep on collecting all of this data from the vehicles.
So we need to make it easier to collect and treat this data. And what does it missing to make and to transform this vision in a reality?
Yeah, so we see two main challenges to materialize this vision. One is around data fragmentation. And data fragmentation has to do with the variety of formats and types and volumes of data that you have out there.
Maybe even inside an OEM between different variants, models and stuff.
Exactly. And this is something that we need as an industry to come together and to come up with standards in order to be able to have a level field in addressing this problem. And the second big challenge is going to be around data ownership and consent. So this is going to be something that we all need to come together as well and figure out what is the best path forward, as there isn't really a direct path where someone that produces the data feels compelled to share that data or to even collect the data to begin with. And also those that are in the business of aggregating and reselling and repackaging and getting answers out of the data are not also finding the right tools to do so.
Yeah, for what you're saying, it's interesting. It's like creating a data social contract, right, between users and their rights and the providers of services. So what's the added value for me if I give consent for you to use the data to provide me a service,
Absolutely.
right? So it's super interesting.
Yeah.
And what are you doing in your lab? You are general manager for IoT Automotive. So what are you doing to address this?
Yeah, so we launched back in November 2021 at re:Invent our first purpose-built managed service called AWS IoT Fleetwise that makes it easier to collect, transfer, and transform vehicle data at scale. And the first motivation behind Fleetwise, IoT Fleetwise, was that we are now able to address fragmentation by leveraging open standards like the Vehicle Signal Specification, VSS, from Covisa, supported by many automakers and tier one.
Covisa is an organization, right?
Yeah, an organization around for decades in automotive. And we are using basically Covisa and this open standard as a way to standardize the proprietary, in essence, signals that we see in each and every vehicle. An analogy to visualize how Fleetwise, IoT Fleetwise works is that it's coming from public key cryptography. So you have the public key, which in our case is the VSS specification, which is public and available to everyone. And then you have the private key, which is actually the proprietary signals and sensors that exist inside each and every vehicle. So the combination basically of those two is what makes the Fleetwise solution and approach provide a solution to fragmentation.
Yeah, it's interesting. So much value for the customer to achieve such level of standardization. What's the future? So what are you working on, if you can tell a bit?
Yeah, so we started literally with Fleetwise as the step one, as the very, very first stepping stone in the trajectory towards more agile data discovery. So we're looking to extend what we have started to build towards a capability to model vehicle data and vehicle sensors in a way that continuously becomes open, standard, and accessible, so that different customers, partners, suppliers, the general ecosystem can come together and provide solutions that now drive towards the software-defined vehicle vision, as well as digital twins and digital representations and other ways.
Yeah, it is great. And we frequently chat about SDV, and we always say that SDV is not just control plane transferring software, but abstracting data as well. So control and data abstraction layers.
Exactly.
And that's absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much. It's been awesome having you here and providing these insights for the sector. So thanks.
Thank you for your time.
I'd like to share some important learnings about human-centric data management, the foundation of what we can call a novel data social contract for the automotive industry. To start, following other industries such as banking and healthcare, the mobility sector is the next area to undergo digitization. It requires specialization to cleanse and unify huge volumes of data. Then remember, what's in it for your customers? You need a clear value proposition to justify the consent they are giving you to use their data. Finally, it is undeniable that a new mobility ecosystem is emerging. More and more players are enabling this transformation, a magnitude not seen since the days of the Model T. Time to close up shop. Come by again.